thank you so much for joining me today. So excited to share with you some recommendations from classic books that I've read. Classics can be daunting to read sometimes, but these are some really good books to get into if you want to get into the classic genre. Let's start with the very first one. The first one I have here, I've got a small penguin edition of this one. This is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is about two people called Heathcliff and Catherine and their tumultuous relationship. In this story, Catherine and Heathcliff grow up together, and I've never seen people that are so obsessed with each other. And you see them over the years that they don't care who or what they destroy in the process. They punish others for not being able to be together, ultimately, in the story. I can really empathize with Heathcliff's character. He loves Catherine beyond reason. He loves her without a doubt. Loves her so blindly that that's all that he can see, it seems. I love the movie adaptation of it with Tom Hardy. That was a really good adaptation of Wuthering Heights, if you're interested in reading and watching that as well. I think it's really beautiful, some of the quotes in here, and these are some of my favorite quotes from the book. This book, what can I say? This book has my absolute heart. One of my favorite classics, one of my favorite books of all time in general. I love Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It just gives me butterflies. It gives me such warm, fuzzy feelings inside when I think about Elizabeth and Darcy. I think this book is the epitome of love. I think it's so pure, so innocent, so unconditional. The way that Jane Austen has written her characters in this story, the way that she's written them in detail, so nuanced, so intelligent. Wow, it's mind-blowing. I remember when I first picked this book up a few years ago, I could not wait to read it every chance that I got. I fell in love with the two main characters in the story. Like, I can relate a lot with Elizabeth's character, her outlook on the world, the way she perceives people. This book left me speechless. Like, I have no words to describe how I felt when I read it. It's that good. I love it with all my heart. I absolutely loved Darcy, our introverted, humble king. Wow. Darcy is so pure, so sweet, so kind-hearted. These two are some of my favorite characters of all time. If I was stranded on an island and I had to take with me one book, I would take this one. The way that Darcy respects and cares for and pursues Elizabeth, oh my god, be still my heart. It's so beautiful. Whenever I want to be reminded of pure, unconditional, beautiful love, I read this book. Or I watch the movie. The 2005 adaptation is very good. It's very beautifully done. Elizabeth and Darcy are one of my favorite characters and love stories that I've ever read. And these are some of my favorite quotes from the book. Another classic, which is an absolute all-time favorite of mine, is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have this beautiful illustrated version of Frankenstein here. I'll show you some of the illustrations in the book. So these are some of the beautiful illustrations that are in the story. I have a few copies of this, as we do with our favorite books, but I think this one's my favorite so far. People that have watched the movie or that have read the book would know that Frankenstein isn't actually the monster's name. The monster is nameless. The creator, the person, the scientist that creates the monster, his name is Frankenstein. So I personally loved it, the moral dilemmas in the story. It gives you a lot to think about on a very deep level. I very much empathized with the monster's character in the story, and I kind of despised Frankenstein for abandoning him to fend for his own in a harsh world that didn't understand him. It makes me think of the world in a more deeper way, the meaning of life. It makes me think of the creator and the creation, and it just makes me think of a whole lot of other things. Things like, were the actions of the monster justified? Was he treated fairly? So many questions, so much to think about. I love things that make me think deeply, and this one definitely did. I've read it time and time again. Read it a few times now after reading it for the first time. I had the pleasure of reading this for the first time when I was in university while doing my masters. And since then, I absolutely fell in love with it, and I think I've read it 3 more times since then. of Jane Austen in one compilation. So as you can see, it is a big book. My next recommendation is Emma by Jane Austen, and I've read most of her works in this big book in bed. So it's not the best to carry around, so it's pretty good to read in bed at home. Emma by Jane Austen is a light-hearted story about a girl called Emma, and she lives with her father and she plays a bit of a matchmaker in her hometown. She's always busy making matches between her friends, people that she knows. She enjoys doing that. You can see how her feelings, her interpretation of love changes throughout the story, and you can see that happening with the people that are closest to her. So another really great read by Jane Austen is Emma. Emma's my third favorite story by Jane Austen. Let's get to my second favorite story by Jane Austen, which is Sense and Sensibility. Sense and Sensibility is about two sisters, Marianne and Eleanor. I could very much relate to Marianne's character because she's a very passionate soul. She loves to express herself, she can't keep her feelings in really, and she feels things on a very deep level and she likes to express them. Eleanor's character, however, she keeps a lot of things in. She's a more reserved person. She does feel deeply, which made me think a lot about how different people are. If people are not showing emotions in the way that you would, it doesn't mean that they don't feel it. So it just shows how different people are, how they express love and their feelings in so many different ways. And I loved the villains in the story too. Jane Austen writes her villains amazingly. You would not think that they're a villain. They're so charming, handsome, put together. You would never think that this person could be a bad person. Chef's kiss, the way she writes villains. And I love the realization in the story that sometimes we might not know what's best for us, and how the sisters learn to express their emotions and discover what's best for them. And I love how the book explores themes like sometimes we might not know what's best for us, and how we can get carried away by what we want to see, and how we can get carried away by looks, and how that perception changes with time. Sense and Sensibility is my second favorite, and I would highly recommend. Maybe in a smaller version. Another amazing classic book I would highly recommend is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. The Picture of Dorian Gray is about a young man who thinks so highly of his handsomeness, of his beauty, and the importance that he places on it. So much so that he succumbs to selling his soul to being eternally beautiful and youthful. In this book, there is a portrait, a painting of Dorian that shows his inner ugliness, shows his soul really. Absolutely loved the morals that it explores, the themes that it explores in this book, and it just goes to show that no matter how physically flawless, how physically beautiful a person can be, your actions and how you treat others will haunt you and catch up to you. Because physical beauty is not enough, and how without inner beauty, physical beauty just means nothing and leaves you empty inside. Amazing story the way it's being told. Short read, about 200 pages, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Another beautifully written classic literature is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is about four sisters, Beth, Meg, Amy and Jo, living in New England with their mother, and how they overcome familial hardships while their father is off in the Civil War, and how they have to fend for themselves in a time where women are not independent. It's about strong, independent women and how they struggle to support themselves and their family. It has themes of family, loyalty, how they break society's norms in finding their way around the world, and how they stick with each other during the lowest times in life, no matter what. So I really love that aspect of this story. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This book is a super short read. You can probably read it in one sitting. It's about 170 pages. Great Gatsby must be an INFJ like me. He's a bit of a dreamer. He thinks that love can solve everything. He thinks he can recreate the past, and he will do anything for the person that he loves. Things don't really work out the way that he would have wanted, and he learns some very hard truths in this book. It's about how society can be so superficial, but no amount of money can buy happiness either. The movie adaptation was good. I think it's played by Leonardo DiCaprio, but I just like the book better. Okay, the next one I have is The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare. I've read quite a few of Shakespeare's works, like Hamlet in high school that I had to read, and Romeo and Juliet. I've also read Macbeth, I've read Othello, I've read The Tempest as well, yep. But this one stood out to me. I just really loved the characters, and there's a few more of Shakespeare's works that I have yet to read that I would absolutely love to. But this one here I think is a great place to start. It's one of my favorite works by Shakespeare. This play explores themes of equality, it explores themes of greed, how much people can never have enough. No matter how much they keep getting, they want more and more. It explores themes of loyalty and friendship and treating people with respect, no matter what their race or their background is. And these are some of my favorite quotes from The Merchant of Venice. The next few books that I have here are books that are classic literature that I have not yet read, but I would absolutely love to. I'm looking forward to reading them in the future. The first one is, I'm sure we've all heard of this one, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I've heard amazing things about Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester, and I cannot wait to read. Another classic that I'm very excited to read is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I have not yet read any of Charles Dickens's books, and I think I'm going to start here with reading his works. I have yet to read classic Russian literature, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I watched the movie already. I absolutely loved it. I love the themes that are explored in that as well, the moral dilemmas, and I can't wait to read this one. It is a big book, but I think it's going to be worth it. Another classic Russian literature author, this is Crime and Punishment. I've got one more book that I would love to read on my list of classic literature books that I'd like to read. The list is going to continue expanding over time, of course. This is A Midsummer's Dream by Shakespeare. It's a short read, comes with spark notes and translations for anyone to understand Olden English. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I've had so much fun sharing with you my classic literature book recommendations. I would love to know, what are some of your favorite classic literature books and what are some of your recommendations? You can subscribe, like, share and comment your thoughts and ideas below. I'll see you in my next video. Take care, bye!